Let's talk about Dave Aranda, current head coach of the Baylor Bears, as Nebraska's next head football coach. I think he's interesting. He's probably at the top of my list. I do mind maps when I do these. And my first thing I wrote on the mind map was, does he suck? No. Dave Aranda does not suck. And he probably sucks less than almost all the other candidates we're going to look at, or any candidate you can come up with. I'm John Johnston, CornNation. Please subscribe to this channel. Hit the like button so YouTube will show my video to more people. And tell everybody what a great guy I am throughout the universe. All your friends and family. Even your pets. Okay, let's go on. Dave Aranda. So Dave Aranda grew up in California. He got injured in high school, injured his shoulder, and was unable after that to play football in college. He got into coaching he tried to go back into college at a small college in California, Cal Lutheran, and he ended up that he couldn't play football, so he got a spot basically being a graduate assistant, and it got him into coaching. And from there, he went to Texas Tech as a graduate assistant, 2000 to 2002, where he was under Mike Leach. After that, Houston, a linebackers coach, back to Cal Lutheran as a defensive coordinator and linebacker coach. So we see that early on, he's already getting coordinator experience. Delta State, Southern Utah, Hawaii. I think where it starts getting interesting is when he goes to Utah State for a year, 2012, under Gary Anderson, and he's the defensive coordinator. But after that, Gary Anderson takes him with him to Wisconsin, and that's, I really think, where the story of Dave Aranda begins. So when he's at Wisconsin, his defense is some of the best in the nation. All right, he takes him from a 4-3 to a 3-4, and let's see, 2013. Wisconsin was 9th in total defense. 2014, they were 9th. And 2015, they were 2nd. So that's pretty good success. 2013, Chris Borland was the linebacker of the year. 2015, it was Joe Schobert. Again, he's developing players. He's having success as a coach, as a defensive coordinator. So he's got, the experience. He goes to LSU 2016. He's there to 2019. Well, he left Wisconsin basically because, he was going to get double the salary at LSU because Wisconsin seems kind of stingy about their salary pool. I don't know if they're still that way, but remember Bert Bellema complained about that, and then he left? Kind of stupid of Wisconsin, don't you think? If they want to get to the next level, that's a different subject. Anyway, he leaves Wisconsin. He goes to LSU. He doubles his salary. 2018, he gets paid $2.5 million a year to be a defensive coordinator, guaranteed for 4 years, so $10 million. So he knows what money is. And in 2019, LSU wins a national title. So Dave Aranda, national title winner. And he's now at Baylor. He goes to Baylor in 2020. And he'd never been a head coach before, and here he has to go through the pandemic year and negotiate that. I think they ended up 2-7, not a good year for them. But the following year, 2021, Baylor has their best year in their school history. Now remember, he replaced Matt Rule, and Matt Rule did a good job at taking over that program and producing some wins. So, their best season in school history, that's kind of an accomplishment. 12-2 overall, 7-2 in the Big 12. They won the Big 12 championship over Oklahoma. And there he is again this year. He's not probably having as much success this year as he did last. But, if you stick around for a while, you're going to fail in some things, I guess. I think the thing about Dave Aranda is the biggest pro about him is he is like Bill O'Brien without a failed NFL stint. He's been very successful everywhere he's gone. He has a gob of experience, and it's mostly on the defensive side of the ball. And you kind of look at that and you go, could we use a defensive coach? I am not against it, especially if that defensive coach was named Dave Aranda. So I kind of looked at all this stuff and I thought, this guy's kind of a winner wherever he's been. He seems to be able to get good players. He seems to develop. I think the Wisconsin thing shows that he could develop players. What I got to come up with some cons. Ain't everybody's got negative parts, right? And I was reading enough on him, and I'll include some links in like the description area from some articles, and a couple of them talk about his coaching philosophies and how he met a guy, sports psychologist named Jerry Lynch, who helped him develop kind of his psychology, and it's kind of a Zen thing and all this stuff. And I don't know what to think about that. Would he fit at Nebraska? Do I care if he wins? Then I don't care. But here's the rub. At LSU, I found some articles, and let me read one of them. There's an article, Winning, and I'll link to this. Winning is great, but it came at a cost for Aranda as he felt as he became the Terminator during his time on the Bayou at LSU. I felt, this is Dave Aranda, I felt that when I was at LSU that I was like a machine. I didn't really talk, and it got to the point where I was there long enough to where people kind of understood that, and they would protect me or shield me from talking, and then it just became worse. I would remove myself a lot. I just wouldn't engage more than anything. Is this bad? I'm going to say, yeah, it kind of is bad. I think that you go back through that list of places he's been, Utah State, Hawaii, Southern Utah, Houston, Texas Tech, Wisconsin, LSU, Baylor. Any of those sound like a fishbowl to you? Because if you're going to be the head coach of Nebraska, you're going to live in a fishbowl. Some guy's going to ask you stupid questions about when you're going to hand out the black shirts, and then no matter how you answer it, it's going to be wrong, and people are going to bitch about it. The only place among that list that is a fishbowl is LSU. Is Baylor a fishbowl? Hell no, Baylor's not a fishbowl. For God's sakes, Art Briles basically got away with whatever he wanted to there, and then when the scandal broke, people still defended him. So Baylor is the exact opposite of a fishbowl. If you win, nobody gives a shit about anything. So I think that's the key with Dave Aranda to me. If he came to Nebraska, would he turn into the guy that goes back to withdrawing from everybody? Because it's a big issue. It really is. Go back to the last 20 years of failed coaches in Nebraska, and you've got Bill Callahan. I know the thing about Bill Callahan is, well, if you only wouldn't have had Kevin Cosgrove, this is bullshit. Bill Callahan was not a leader. When things went bad, Bill Callahan withdrew and said stupid things at press conferences like, I think I've been excellent in all areas. That's not a leader. And you'll notice what happened to Bill Callahan after Nebraska. He's never been a head coach again. Been an offensive line position coach. Never went above that. Maybe he found his place. He's supposed to be one of the best in the nation. Bo Pelini. What's wrong with Bo Pelini? Well, he got fired because 9-3 right now. He got fired because he didn't have the mentality it took to be a head coach at a place that is a fishbowl. Ultimately, his behavior cost him, and the blowouts didn't hurt, or they didn't help him. I mean, he got blown out by all the good opponents he faced. But again, that's a big issue for somebody. They have to have the mentality to go into a place like Nebraska and be successful, which means they're going to have to put up with tons of shit. Now, he gets paid, Dave Aranda gets $6 million at Baylor, so to get him to come to Nebraska, I think you're probably going to have to offer him a shit ton of money, and it's probably going to have to be guaranteed. Is that good or bad? Well, I think that's the cost of business these days, like it or not. The other thing I'll say about him is I don't think he'd come to Nebraska. I think he'd be probably better off staying at Baylor. And when you look at, I think Nebraska is a good job, but when you look at the road ahead, the Nebraska job is going to become much more difficult. We're going to have USC and UCLA join our conference. The divisions are going to go away, so we're not going to play in this little Big Ten West that's not really very good. There's no juggernauts. We're going to have to play like this pool thing in the Big Ten where there are some juggernauts, and they're named Ohio State and Michigan. And, sometimes Penn State may be up there. Probably not Wisconsin. But that road to the national title is going to get much more difficult in the years to come. Whereas you look at the Big 12, what are they doing? Well, they're not, Texas, Oklahoma's leaving. Some teams might be joining, but I don't think you'd look at the teams joining. It's not a juggernaut. It's not a conference full of juggernauts. So you'd have to argue, would he be better staying there to win a national title? Because they're going to throw money at him. They already did. So that's the reasons why I think Dave Aranda probably wouldn't be interested in coming to Nebraska, is because the road ahead is going to be very hard. When you look at our team, somebody's going to have to rebuild the offensive and defensive lines, because those things have been they've been ignored because of the previous regime. You know that. So Dave Aranda, if I had to pick a coach that I'd like to see as our next head coach, I think it'd be him. I think he's an interesting guy. I think he looks like a nice guy. I think that's important. But I don't think he's going to come to Nebraska. I'd be happy to be wrong about that. I'd like to know what you guys think. What do you see about red flags, about Dave Aranda? Anything at all? Let me know. Thanks for listening. Subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your pets. Go buy a shirt or something. Go Big Red.